10 years ago, I opened my front door to find a baby in the rain. No knock, no goodbye, just my sister's child and a note that said, "Her name is Mia. I can't do this." My parents told me, "She's your burden now." My boyfriend left, but I raised Mia like my own. Then they came back. My sister, her husband, and even my parents suing me for custody. But when I handed the judge a sealed folder, his eyes widened. "Do they even know what you have?" he asked. I nodded. This wasn't just a custody battle. It was a war for the truth. The rain was relentless that night, hammering down in cold sheets as Sarah Nolan pulled into her driveway. Her wipers had barely kept up on the slick roads, and the cold wind had slipped through the seams of her jacket as she rushed from her car to the porch. A 12-hour shift at the pediatric ward had left her legs aching, her mind foggy, and her only plan was a hot shower and a glass of red wine before collapsing into bed. She was already slipping off her shoes when she heard it, the doorbell sharp and insistent. Sarah frowned. It was almost 9:45 p.m. She wasn't expecting anyone, and in her quiet suburb, visitors at that hour were rare. Maybe a neighbor, a package mix-up. She opened the door with cautious curiosity, and then everything inside her stopped. There on the welcome mat sat a baby carrier. Rain pelted the plastic shell, and a pale pink blanket had been tucked around the infant inside. Sarah froze, heart hammering, eyes struggling to make sense of what she was seeing. The baby, tiny with flushed cheeks and tufts of dark hair, slept peacefully, unaware of the storm both outside and about to begin. Her hands trembled as she knelt down. Tucked into the side of the carrier was a folded piece of paper, its edges damp from the rain. She opened it carefully. 7 words scribbled in familiar, rushed handwriting. "Her name is Mia. I can't do this. Please take care of her." Sarah stared at the note, then back at the baby. Her heart dropped to her stomach. Mia. That name. That handwriting. It could only be from one person. Jessica. Her older sister. The one who had disappeared from everyone's life the moment she found out she was pregnant nearly 4 months ago. Sarah had tried calling, texting, even reaching out through mutual friends. But Jessica had ghosted the world, slipping into silence like smoke. And now she'd reappeared, not in person, but in the form of this tiny, helpless child left on Sarah's doorstep, like a package. No one wanted. Sarah's voice was shaking as she pulled her phone from her bag and hit Jessica's number. It rang once, twice, straight to voicemail. "No, no, no," Sarah whispered, hitting call again. Same result. She dialed a third time. Still nothing. Her fingers hovered, then moved with purpose to the next number on her list. Her parents, her mother answered on the second ring. "Mom, Jessica left her baby on my doorstep. She's here. Mia's here." There was a pause, a long, cold pause. "Are you sure it's her baby?" "Yes," Sarah snapped, tears already hot behind her eyes. "There's a note. It's her handwriting. It says her name is Mia." Another pause. Then her mother's voice turned hard. "We told Jessica not to go through with that pregnancy. She made her choice." "What? What do you mean? She's a baby. She's your granddaughter. She's not our problem." Her father's voice chimed in now on speaker. "She left her with you, not us. That's your burden now." Sarah's mouth went dry. "You can't be serious. We're too old for this." Her mother snapped. "We already raised our kids. We're not about to raise Jessica's mistake." Then the line went dead. Sarah stood there stunned, the phone still pressed to her ear, the rain soaking the edges of her socks. Behind her, the baby let out a soft sigh in her sleep, as if to say she didn't need anyone else, just the woman who had opened the door. Still in shock, Sarah shut the door and stood staring at the baby now resting on her living room floor. Mia. The name already felt personal, too close to her chest. She didn't know what to do. She wasn't a mother. She was a nurse, a good one, sure. But babies came with monitors and charts, not notes scribbled in panic and left in the rain. Her hands moved on instinct. She wrapped Mia in a dry blanket, placed the carrier on the couch, and dialed the one person she thought might be able to help. "Ethan," he answered on the third ring. "Hey, babe. Everything okay?" Sarah didn't waste time. Jessica dropped off her baby on my doorstep. She's 3 months old, maybe. Her name's Mia. What? His voice jumped. You're serious? I need help. I don't have diapers, formula, anything. Can you go to the 24-hour market? And wait, Sarah, slow down. You're telling me your sister dumped a baby on you and now you're just keeping her? She's not a stray cat, Sarah snapped, her voice cracking. I can't just put her back out in the rain. You should call social services. No, not yet. She's family. Ethan was quiet for a
moment. Look, I'm sorry, but this is insane. You can't just suddenly become a mum. You're overwhelmed. This isn't our life. It's not your life, Sarah said quietly. He sighed. You're emotional. Just call someone. A caseworker. I can't get involved in this. The line went dead before she could respond. Her chest tightened, but the tears didn't fall until she looked down at Mia again. The baby stirred, letting out a soft cry, hungry. Sarah felt paralyzed. She didn't even know what kind of formula to buy. Still in her hospital scrubs, she bundled Mia back into the carrier, grabbed her keys, and drove through the storm to the nearest 24-hour supermarket. Her brain buzzed with panic. Every aisle felt like a foreign country. Tiny clothes, shelves of formulas, a wall of diapers labeled by weight. She stared at it all, frozen. Need a hand, dear? The voice came from behind. An older woman, silver hair tucked beneath a scarf, stood with a gentle smile and a patient gaze. You look like you've just been dropped into the deep end. Sarah blinked at her, eyes full of tears. My sister left her baby. I don't know what I'm doing. The woman nodded, stepping closer. Let's start with diapers. If she's 3 months, she's probably a size 1 or 2, and you'll need formula, gentle on the tummy just in case. Do you have bottles? Sarah shook her head. The woman gently steered her cart. We'll fix that. Together they moved through the aisles. Diapers, wipes, formula, bottles, pacifiers. The woman helped load the cart and even pushed it to checkout. My name's Joan, she said softly. You're doing something brave. Most people would have called the cops and walked away. I thought about it, Sarah admitted, voice trembling, but I couldn't. That baby's lucky, Joan said, patting her arm. So are you. It may not feel like it now, but sometimes the best things in life show up on your doorstep. Back home, Sarah set up a makeshift crib out of a laundry basket and soft towels. She fumbled with the formula, nervously checking the temperature 3 times before gently pressing the bottle to Mia's lips. The baby latched immediately, drinking hungrily. In that quiet moment, something shifted. Mia's eyes fluttered open, big, curious, trusting. No one had ever looked at Sarah like that before, not even Ethan. This wasn't her plan. This wasn't her life. But maybe it could be. After burping Mia and rocking her to sleep, Sarah sat on the floor beside the basket. The rain still tapped the windows. Her phone was silent. She was alone, but not entirely. She leaned in close and whispered, I don't know what I'm doing, but I promise you're not alone anymore. By morning, Sarah had made her decision. The air was heavy with the scent of formula and lavender baby wipes, and she hadn't slept more than an hour. Mia lay bundled beside her on the couch, her tiny chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. Sarah stared at the ceiling, then at her phone. Her hospital supervisor answered on the second ring. I need to take emergency family leave, Sarah said voice. Of course, the supervisor replied without hesitation. Take the time you need. With that, Sarah's old life began to fold behind her. She spent the next 48 hours in a whirlwind of logistical panic. Doctors, paperwork, rearranging furniture. Her 1-bedroom apartment, once perfect for late-night takeout and crashing after shifts, now felt impossibly small. The corners overflowed with diaper boxes, and the quiet that used to soothe her now only magnified every baby cry. By day 3, she signed a short-term lease on a 2-bedroom unit in an older complex closer to the pediatric clinic. It had peeling paint and a shaky heater, but it offered space and, more importantly, a room for Mia. Moving alone with a newborn was a Herculean task. Sarah strapped Mia to her chest in a wrap someone from war had dropped off and made trip after trip up the stairs, assembling cribs, stacking bottles, organizing drawers by size of baby onesies. It was chaos wrapped in exhaustion, and yet at the center of it was something strangely grounding. She barely had time to process anything until she sat down with the family court clerk to file for temporary guardianship. The woman behind the glass wore thick glasses and a flat expression. "Do you have the mother's signed consent?" "No," Sarah said, holding up the note. "She left this." The woman barely glanced at it. "Do you have proof she intended to abandon custody?" "She left her baby on my doorstep," Sarah replied. "That's the proof." The clear side-eyed and handed her a packet too in thick. "You'll need to complete this. Provide personal references, submit to a home inspection, fingerprinting, background check, and possibly a court-appointed evaluation. Expect delays." Sarah stared at the papers, overwhelmed. "But I'm her aunt. Doesn't change the process." Outside the courthouse, Sarah sat in her car and cried for the first time in days. She wasn't prepared for this financially, emotionally, legally. There were so many pieces to hold and her hands already felt full. She called Ethan again. Maybe now, with some time to think, he'd be different. Maybe he'd understand. But when he picked up, his tone was clipped. "Sarah, I can't do this with you. I thought you'd come to your senses by now. She's a baby, Ethan, my niece." "This isn't my life," he said, "and frankly, it shouldn't be yours either. You're throwing everything away." She hung up before he could finish. The rest of that week blurred, feeding every 3 hours, crying jags, both Mia and her own. Sarah studied YouTube videos about swaddling, called her old nursing mentor at midnight about rashes, and kept a notepad of questions she had for the pediatrician. Every bottle washed felt like a small victory. Every successful nap a triumph. She burned through her savings, buying a crib, formula, and doctor visits. She learned the smell of diaper cream and the weight of sleeplessness. She also learned how much love could be crammed into the quiet moments when Mia curled her hand around Sarah's finger or sighed softly against her chest. She wasn't sure what the next day would bring. But every night, as she checked Mia's breathing for the 5th time before allowing herself to rest, Sarah whispered the same promise. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." 3 weeks after Mia arrived, Sarah returned home to find her apartment lit with soft string lights, pink streamers, and a room full of colleagues holding diapers like trophies. "Surprise!" they all shouted as she blinked at them in confusion. Mia snug against her chest in a wrap. Her supervisor stepped forward, grinning. "You didn't think we were going to let you do this alone, did you?" They had brought everything: a stroller, a car seat, boxes of formula, wipes, clothes in various sizes, baby books, even second-hand toys from their own children. One nurse handed her a framed drawing with the words, "It takes a village, and we are yours." Sarah cried openly for the first time without shame. For that evening, in that small, oversteered living room, she didn't feel abandoned. She felt surrounded. The next week, she met Gloria. Sarah had posted on a local parent forum asking for trusted childcare recommendations. Gloria, a retired preschool teacher in her late 60s, now ran a small home daycare nearby. When Sarah visited, she found a cozy bungalow with rainbow rugs, shelves of picture books, and a back porch that smelled faintly of fresh cookies. Gloria welcomed her like family. "You look like you haven't sat down in days," she said, motioning Sarah to the kitchen table. "Let me hold that baby while you drink some tea." Within an hour, Sarah knew she'd found a safe place. Gloria had a quiet steadiness about her, a way of holding Mia that made the baby sigh with contentment. They agreed on part-time hours so Sarah could catch up on sleep, court filings, and eventually return to work part-time. But still, a question haunted her. Where was Jessica? She needed closure answers. With borrowed money, Sarah hired a private investigator. It felt drastic, even paranoid, but she couldn't shake the feeling that her sister might reappear and demand Mia back. The PI worked quickly. Within 2 weeks, he tracked down credit card activity and an old social media login from a diner in San Diego. Jessica had worked there for a few weeks, then vanished again. No legal records since. It was both a relief and a stab of pain. Her sister was alive, just choosing not to be found. Sarah saved the file, unsure what to do with it. Then Mia got sick. It started with a cough, then a low-grade fever. By midnight, the baby's breathing became shallow and fast. Panic seized Sarah in a grip colder than any she'd felt in the ER. She bundled Mia into her car and sped to the hospital, hands white-knuckled on the wheel, whispering over and over, "Stay with me. Just stay with me." In the pediatric emergency room, Sarah reverted to nurse mode, describing symptoms, demanding oxygen, holding Mia's hand as monitors beeped around them. But underneath the clinical calm, she was falling apart. What if something happened to Mia? What if her sister's carelessness, her own lack of knowledge, had cost this child her health, or worse? She didn't realize she was crying until a young resident handed her tissues. "You're doing everything right," he said gently. Mia recovered after a long night of observation, a respiratory virus the doctors said would pass. Sarah stayed awake the entire time, rocking her, whispering larbies into sweaty curls. When dawn came, and Mia finally fell into a steady sleep, Sarah didn't feel exhausted, she felt changed. This baby, who wasn't hers by blood, had become the center of her world. There was no longer a question in her mind. Mia was her daughter in every way that mattered. 5 years passed in what felt like the blink of an eye. Mia was now a bright, inquisitive 5-year-old with wild curls, skinned knees, and a deep love for dinosaurs and glitter. She called Sarah Mommy without hesitation, the words slipping from her lips as naturally as breath. It had started around age 2, unprompted, unexpected. One morning, she toddled into the kitchen and said, "Mommy, juice, please." And Sarah had nearly dropped the glass in her hand. That single word changed everything. Sarah never corrected her. She couldn't. Mia wasn't her niece anymore. She was her daughter in every way that mattered. Wanting more time with Mia, Sarah made a hard decision to step away from the hospital. She took a position as a school nurse at a nearby elementary school. Less pay, but better hours. The job came with school holidays and summer breaks, which meant more breakfasts with heart-shaped pancakes, more afternoons building pillow forts, more bedtime stories curled up under twinkling fairy lights. Their small apartment evolved with them. Mia's room was painted soft lavender and covered in glow-in-the-dark stars. The fridge door displayed a rotating collection of crayon masterpieces, stick figure families, dragons with princess crowns, and hearts, always hearts. Sarah's favourite was one that showed 2 people holding hands inside a giant red heart, with the caption, "Me and Mummy, Heart Family." It became their term, Heart Family. Whenever Mia asked why she didn't have a daddy like some of the other kids, or why her skin was a little darker than Sarah's, or why Grandma never stayed long, Sarah would crouch to her level and say, "Some families are born from blood, and some are chosen with love. We're a heart family, and that's just as real." Most mornings they sat on the couch together eating toast with honey and talking about Mia's dreams. Some days it was flying whales, other days dancing clouds. On Sundays, they visited the park near the school, where Mia raced other kids on the jungle gym, while Sarah read books on the bench nearby, always with one eye on her daughter. But some questions were harder to answer. One night, while Sarah was folding laundry and Mia was colouring at the kitchen table, the question came, quiet, tentative, "Mommy, who did I grow in?" Sarah froze, a sock in each hand. She turned slowly to find Mia staring up at her, eyes wide, serious in the way only children could be. "You said I came from love," Mia said, "but did I come from your tummy?" Sarah knelt beside her. "No, sweetheart," she said gently. "You grew in someone else's tummy. Her name is Jessica. Is she nice?" She had a hard time, Sarah replied honestly. She wasn't ready to be a mommy when you were born, but she knew you needed someone who would love you always. That's why she brought you to me. Mia nodded slowly, taking it in like she did with news stories. So she gave me to you because she loved me. Yes, Sarah said, voice thick. And I loved you from the very first second I saw you. Mia reached out and touched Sarah's cheek. I'm glad you're my mummy. Sarah pulled her into a hug, holding her tightly. There were still holes in the story, some truths Mia wasn't ready for and maybe never needed. But Sarah knew one thing with absolute certainty. They had built something real, something unbreakable, a family of two bound by heart. A week after Mia's question about her birth mum, Sarah decided to do something more tangible, something that might help her daughter understand their unique little world. She pulled out a blank scrapbook, printed photos from the past 5 years, and sat down to create what she called our Heart Family book. On the first page, she glued a photo of them at the park, arms raised in victory over a conquered jungle gym, grins stretching across their faces. The caption beneath read, Just us two, team forever. Each page told a piece of their journey. First walks, Halloween costumes, pancake breakfasts, sick days spent curled up with storybooks interwoven with simple explanations in child-friendly words. Some kids grow in their mummy's tummy, some grow in their mummy's heart. Another read, Family isn't always about who you're born to, it's about who stays. Mia adored the book. She carried it around like a prized possession, sometimes reading it aloud to her stuffed animals. Sarah caught her once explaining to her plush unicorn, This is me and Mummy. We're a heart family, not a blood one. That's better because hearts don't give up. Sarah smiled at the memory, but not every moment was so warm. Her parents, Mia's biological grandparents, visited about 4 times a year. Their visits were brief and always strained. Sarah invited them, not because she trusted them, but because she didn't want Mia to grow up without some connection to her roots, however complicated. But each visit chipped away at Sarah's patience. Her mother would step inside and immediately comment on the clutter. This place could use a good organizing, she'd mutter, wrinkling her nose at Mia's drawings taped to the fridge. Her father rarely said much. He would stand stiffly in the doorway or sit on the edge of the couch, arms crossed, as if Mia were some science project he didn't quite approve of. Once during a visit, Mia excitedly brought over her Heart Family book to show them. Her grandmother flipped through it with a tight smile. Well, this is cute, she said. But don't you think she should know her real family? Sarah took a deep breath, kneeling beside Mia. You know who your real family is, right? Mia nodded. It's you and me and Gloria and Miss Jen from school, and even Mrs. Santiago, who makes banana bread. Sarah smiled. Exactly. After they left, Sarah stood by the door for a long time, wondering why she kept letting them in. Maybe she still clung to the idea of reconciliation, or maybe she wanted Mia to see that family could be flawed, but survivable. Then came the unexpected twist. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Gloria had stopped Buzzsaw with a basket of blueberry muffins. Mia was in the backyard painting a cardboard rocket ship, while Sarah and Gloria sipped tea on the porch. Gloria reached into her purse and pulled out a local event magazine. I was helping sort books for the church fundraiser and someone handed me this, she said, tapping a page. Take a look at the bottom corner. Sarah squinted at a group photo from the annual Spring Arts Fair. The image was blurry, but the figure near the back, dark hair pulled into a familiar messy bun, sunglasses perched on her head, a faint smirk, was unmistakable. Jessica! Sarah's stomach dropped. She's back, she whispered. I didn't know for sure until I saw this, Gloria replied, voice low. But I'd bet money. That's your sister. The photo was from last weekend, the same weekend Mia had asked about her birth mum. The timing felt too perfect, too coincidental. Sarah closed the magazine, her heart thudding in her chest. Jessica hadn't called, hadn't reached out, but she was back in town, watching, waiting. Something was coming. Sarah could feel it. It started with a text message. Jessica, hi Sarah, I know this is unexpected. I'd really like to talk. Coffee sometime, please. Sarah stared at the screen for nearly 10 minutes, rereading the words, trying to decipher the intent behind their simplicity. It had been over 5 years, half a decade since the night Jessica vanished, leaving Mia behind like a forgotten suitcase in a storm. Her first instinct was to delete it, ignore it, pretend it had never come. But something gnawed at her. Curiosity, anger, closure. She finally responded with a single line. Tomorrow, 10:00 a.m., Clara Ara's cafe. Just us. The next morning, Sarah arrived early, choosing a table near the window where she could see everyone who walked in. Her hands trembled slightly around her coffee cup. The town hadn't changed much in 5 years, but Sarah had. She had built a life rooted in love, not in chaos. She didn't want it upended. At exactly 10:01, Jessica walked through the door. She looked different. Not the disheveled, frantic mess Sarah remembered, but polished. Her dark hair was styled in a sleek bob, her makeup light but meticulous. She wore a blazer over a crisp blouse and carried a leather purse that screamed upper-middle-class suburbia. She spotted Sarah and walked over, her expression unreadable. "Hi," she said softly, sliding into the seat opposite. Sarah nodded. "Hi." They sat in silence for a beat before Jessica inhaled deeply. "You look good, strong." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "I've had to be." Jessica flinched but nodded. "I deserve that." Sarah waited. Cuvez, she wasn't about to make this easy. "I've been sober for almost 4 years," Jessica began. "I went into rehab 6 months after leaving Mia. I was in bad shape, Sarah. I didn't even trust myself to hold her. I thought I'd break her. You already did," Sarah said, voice low. Jessica didn't argue. "You're right. I was selfish, scared, sick." She went on to explain her journey, stints in rehab, relapses, therapy, how she'd met Logan, a counselor at one of the facilities after she'd been clean for a year, how they'd moved to Arizona, then back to California, and recently here back home. Logan got a job at a non-profit design firm. She said, "I freelance now, graphic design. Nothing fancy, but we're doing well." "And now?" Sarah asked. Jessica hesitated. "Now I want to meet her, Mia. I don't expect anything. I don't want to confuse her. I need to see her to know the little person I brought into the world is okay." Sarah studied her sister, searching for cracks, manipulation, guilt-tripping, hidden agendas. But Jessica's expression held something different. Remorse, maybe even sincerity. "I'm not here to take anything from you," Jessica added quickly. "I know you're her mum. You've earned that. I just want a chance to be around like an aunt, maybe a friend." Sarah folded her arms, heart pounding. You didn't even call. You've been back for how long?" "A few months," Jessica admitted. "I didn't want to cause problems. I wasn't sure you'd even talk to me. You were right about that." Jessica looked down. I thought I was doing the right thing when I left her with you. You're the best person I know, Sarah. I knew you'd protect her." Silence stretched between them, heavy and unresolved. Finally, Sarah spoke. "I'll think about it, but Mia comes first. If I sense anything that feels unsafe, you're gone. Understand?" Jessica nodded, eyes misty completely. Sarah stood, grabbing her coat. "I'll let you know." As she stepped out into the cool morning air, her heart ached with conflict. Mia's world was simple now, stable, safe. Did Jessica have the right to touch that? She didn't have an answer yet, but she knew this wasn't over. A week later, Sarah sat Mia down in their small living room, the Hart family book resting in her lap. "There's someone I'd like you to meet," she said gently. "Someone very special." Mia tilted her head. "Who?" "Her name is Jessica. She's the person who carried you in her tummy before you were born." Mia blinked. "My other mummy." Sarah nodded, keeping her tone calm. "Yes, but remember, families are made in many ways. I'm your mummy now, and that's never going to change. Jessica just wants to meet you, maybe be part of your life if you're okay with that." Mia was quiet for a moment, then whispered it. "Will she try to take me away?" The question broke Sarah's heart. "No," she said firmly, wrapping Mia in her arms. "No one is taking you anywhere. You're mine forever, I promise." They met at the Children's Museum, a bright, bustling space where Mia could explore, touch, climb, and if things got uncomfortable, disappear into a ball pit. Jessica arrived on time, dressed in jeans and a soft sweater, her hair in a simple ponytail. She looked more like a local mum than a ghost from the past. When Mia spotted her, she clung tightly to Sarah's hand. Jessica knelt down, her voice soft. "Hi, Mia. I'm Jessica. It's really nice to meet you." Mia peeked out from behind Sarah's leg. "Hi." Jessica smiled but didn't reach out. "Your mummy told me how much you love space stuff. I saw they have a rocket ship upstairs. Want to show me?" Mia looked up at Sarah. "Can we?" Sarah gave a small nod. "We can all go." For the next hour, they wandered together, awkward at first, then slowly easing into a rhythm. Jessica was cautious, letting Mia lead. She asked about school, admired her astronaut drawing, laughed when Mia made a joke about Saturn's rings being donuts. But when Mia ran ahead to the planetarium display, she called out, "Mummy, look at this!" Sarah turned instinctively. Jessica didn't. The smile on Jessica's face faltered just a second, barely visible, but Sarah caught it. That flash of pain. Still, Jessica recovered, forcing a bright nod. "That's so cool, Mia." Later that evening, as Sarah tucked Mia into bed, her daughter said, "She's nice, but you're still my mummy, okay?" Sarah kissed her forehead always. Over the next few weeks, Jessica became a presence in their lives. She came to the park sometimes, dropped off books or colouring sets, joined them for occasional lunch dates. Sarah kept visits public, brief and controlled. She wasn't ready to trust fully, but she also didn't want to close the door completely. Mia seemed to enjoy having someone new to talk to, curious but cautious, like a child discovering a distant cousin at a family reunion. Then came the first misstep. Jessica invited Sarah and Mia over for brunch. Sarah hesitated but agreed, wanting to observe the dynamic in a new setting. Their house was modest and tastefully decorated, with framed art on the walls and a faint scent of coffee in the air. Logan greeted them warmly, if a little too rehearsed. He complimented Mia's dress, shook Sarah's hand with a politician's polish, and led them into the dining room. During the meal, everything seemed normal until Logan excused himself and returned with a wrapped box. "Mia," he said, "we got you something." Mia's eyes lit up as she opened the package. A tablet, not a cheap toy, but a high-end name-brand device. Sarah stiffened. "Wow," Mia gasped. "It's so cool." Sarah forced a smile. "That's very generous, but no strings," Logan interrupted smoothly. "Just a gift. She deserves nice things." Sarah's instincts flared. Gifts this extravagant weren't about generosity. They were leverage. Back home, Mia couldn't stop talking about the tablet. Sarah stayed up late researching how to set parental controls and how to prepare for a custody war she hoped would never come. Because deep down she knew Logan hadn't given Mia a gift. He'd placed a piece on the board. The envelope came on a rainy Tuesday, much like the night Mia had first arrived. It was thick, cream-coloured, and stamped with the seal of the county court. Sarah opened it cautiously, scanning the pages, her eyes catching on phrases that knocked the air out of her lungs. Petition for restoration of parental rights. Request for full legal custody, filed by Jessica Morgan and Logan Reed. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the documents. Legal jargon blurred into a haze of betrayal. Claims that Jessica had recovered, was now capable of parenting, and that it was in Mia's best interest to be raised by her biological mother and stable two-parent household. Sarah dropped the papers onto the kitchen table, her breath ragged. Stable two-parent? Where were they 10 years ago? Her heart pounded. She grabbed her phone and dialed Jessica. It went straight to voicemail, no surprise there. She called again. This time Logan answered. "Sarah," he said smoothly, "I know this is a lot, but please understand we're doing what's best for Mia." "You mean for yourselves?" she snapped. "You had brunch with us last week. You watched Mia call me Mum, And then you file this behind my back. We didn't want to ambush you, Logan said. But legally, this was the right step. Jessica's her mother. The courts will see that. Sarah hung up without another word. She barely noticed the tears until Mia walked into the room, eyes sleepy from her nap. Mummy, what's wrong? Sarah knelt, pulling her into a hug. Nothing, baby, just some grown-up stuff. But Mia didn't miss much. She saw the papers. She saw the fear. That night, after dinner, Sarah sat in stunned silence, rereading the petition for the 10th time. A memory flashed, Logan's smug smile as Mia unwrapped the tablet. The timing wasn't just convenient, it had been planned. Then her phone buzzed again. Unknown number, she hesitated, then answered. Sarah, it's me, said a familiar voice. Her mother, I assume you've heard. Sarah's mouth went dry. Heard what about Jessica's petition? We think it's time Mia returns to her real family. Sarah blinked. Her father's voice came next. We've been in contact with Jessica for a few years now. She's changed. Logan's good for her. They can give Mia a proper life. Sarah stood pacing. You knew where she was for 3 years and said nothing. Her mother sounded defensive. We didn't want to cause tension. You lied to me, Sarah said, voice rising. You visited, judged my parenting, called Mia a burden, and all that time you were plotting this. She belongs with her mother, her father said coldly. You've done your part, Sarah, but blood matters. The call ended with no apology, no explanation, just finality. Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her feet. The betrayal wasn't just from Jessica and Logan, it had been brewing inside her own blood. Later that night, while Sarah was trying to compose herself at the kitchen table, Mia walked in, dragging her stuffed bunny by one ear. Her eyes were wide and serious. Mummy, am I going to have to live with them? Sarah turned, trying to hide the panic in her face. Why would you ask that, sweetheart? I heard Grandma on the phone, Mia said softly. She said I was going home soon. Sarah pulled her into her lap. Listen to me. This is your home. I'm your mummy. No matter what happens, I will fight for you. I promise. Mia's voice trembled. Promise with a heart. Sarah pressed their hands together, fingers interlocked over Mia's chest. Promise with a heart, she whispered. Always. The next morning, Sarah sat across from Alicia Monroe, a sharp-eyed family law attorney whose office walls were lined with photos of children and framed verdicts. She came highly recommended by a friend at school who had gone through a nasty custody battle of her own. Alicia wasted no time. Let me be honest, biological parents have significant rights, even absent ones. But you've been Mia's sole caregiver for nearly a decade. That gives us a strong argument for continuity and emotional well-being. Sarah nodded, trying to stay composed. I won't let them take her. I don't care what it costs. We'll do everything we can, Alicia said, already scribbling notes. First step, build a case. I need everything. Pictures, school records, medical documents, emails, texts, any proof that you've been her constant. The more the better. Sarah spent the next week assembling a mountain of documentation. She created folders, digital and physical. Photos from Mia's first birthday, her first steps, her preschool graduation. A video of Mia introducing herself to her kindergarten class as Mia Nolan. And this is my mummy. Report cards, pediatric visits, family drawings, emails from her parents refusing visits. Texts from Jessica years ago, begging for silence. She also pulled out old letters, unsent notes she'd written to Jessica, updating her on Mia's milestones. Notes she had once hoped to deliver, now they were evidence. Alicia reviewed everything meticulously. This paints a clear picture, but we need more. That's when Sarah remembered him. Cal Dorsey, the private investigator she'd hired years ago to go to find Jessica. She hadn't spoken to him since, but his number was still saved in her phone. He answered on the first ring. Sarah Nolan, didn't expect to hear from you again. I need your help, she said. It's urgent. They met in a quiet corner of a diner later that afternoon. Sarah laid it out, Jessica's return, the custody suit, the feeling that something deeper was at play. Cal listened, then leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. You think there's another motive? I know there is, Sarah said. Logan's been too smooth, too prepared, and the timing. Jessica shows up out of nowhere right after Mia turns 10. It doesn't feel like love. It feels strategic. Cal scratched his beard. All right, let me dig. 3 days later, he called. I found something. They met again, this time in Alicia's office. Cal spread out a folder filled with screenshots and documents. Logan has been conducting extensive searches, genealogy databases, social media, even private ancestry sites, all tied to a man named Daniel Brooks. Who's that? Alicia asked. Mia's likely biological father. Cal said he was a college classmate of Jessica's. They had a brief relationship, but here's the kicker. Daniel's grandfather passed away last year, left him an estate worth over $6 million. Sarah's blood ran cold. Jessica never told me who the father was, she whispered. Never. Logan tracked him down 6 months ago, Cal continued. Then suddenly, Jessica moves back and the custody petition is filed. Coincidence? I don't think so. Alicia leaned forward. If they gain custody, they can establish paternity, claim backdated child support, and secure financial control over Mia's assets as her guardians. Sarah's stomach twisted. It wasn't about family, not love, not redemption. It was about money. She stood slowly, fists clenched. They're not just trying to take her, they're trying to cash her in. Alicia met her gaze. This changes everything. With proper documentation, we can challenge their credibility and their motives. Sarah exhaled, trembling with rage. Then let's go to war. The courtroom smelled like old paper and tension. Sarah sat at the petitioner's table in a navy blue blazer, her heart pounding with a mix of rage and terror. Alicia sat beside her, calm and composed, stacks of neatly labelled folders in front of them. On the other side of the aisle, Jessica looked like the picture of maternal sorrow. Her makeup was light, eyes watery, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Logan wore a tailored grey suit, every inch the supportive husband. The judge, a woman in her late 60s with silver hair and sharp glasses, entered and called the room to order. This is a hearing to determine the custody and parental rights of minor child Mia Nolan, age 10, she began. We will hear from all relevant parties and assess the best interest of the child above all else. Jessica testified first. She stood with deliberate fragility, her voice low and trembling. I made terrible mistakes, she said. When Mia was born, I was broken, addicted. I couldn't even hold her without shaking. I thought leaving her with Sarah was the only way to protect her. She sniffled, wiping at tears with a tissue. I didn't abandon her because I didn't care. I left because I did. Alicia leaned over and whispered, Watch the performance. Judges have seen it all. Jessica continued. Since then, I've gotten clean. I've rebuilt my life. I've married a good man. We bought a house in a safe neighborhood with a great school. I'm not here to erase the past. I just want to be a mother to my daughter. She stepped down and Logan replaced her on the stand. Where Jessica had played regret, Logan played precision. We own a 4-bedroom home in a top school district, he said confidently. I make a steady 6 figure income, and Jessica works freelance from home. We've already started a college fund for Mia. We can offer her the kind of future every child deserves. He turned towards the judge. Sarah has done her best and we respect that, but she's a single parent in a small apartment working 2 jobs. Mia deserves stability, resources, and the support of 2 loving adults. That's what we can provide. Sarah's jaw clenched. The narrative was clear. They were the picture-perfect family swooping in to rescue the child. Then came the testimony that broke something inside her. Her own parents took the stand. Her mother spoke first, dressed in pearls and a pale sweater. She smiled tightly at the judge. We've always wanted to be part of Mia's life, but Sarah, she shut us out. She made it difficult to visit, difficult to bond. She's never let Mia attend family holidays with us, her father added. We've tried, but Sarah always had an excuse. We're her grandparents, but we've been treated like strangers. Sarah could hardly breathe. Lies, twisted half-truths sculpted to make her look like a gatekeeper instead of a protector. She needs her real mother, her mother concluded. Blood is blood. It's time for Sarah to let go. Alicia gently placed a hand on Sarah's wrist under the table. Stay steady, she whispered. Our turn is coming. But Sarah couldn't stop staring at her parents as they stepped down, avoiding her gaze entirely. They weren't just backing Jessica, they were burying her. In that moment, Sarah understood something vital. This wasn't a custody hearing, it was a coordinated campaign. A beautiful, well-packaged ambush where even her own blood had joined the attack. When it was Sarah's turn, the courtroom shifted. The polished performance of the other side had painted her as overprotective, isolated, inadequate. But Alicia was ready. Your Honour, she began, rising smoothly. Before Miss Nolan testifies, we request to submit a collection of visual evidence. She walked over to the clear with a USB drive and handed the judge a transcript. These are videos recorded over the past several years. They include Mia Nolan in her home environment interacting with Miss Nolan. They are unscripted, spontaneous, and speak directly to the strength of their bond. The judge glanced over the paperwork. Proceed. The screen lowered in the courtroom, lights dimmed. The first video showed a 7-year-old Mia baking cookies with Sarah covered in flour, giggling. Mummy, you're making the dough wrong, she laughed. Sarah off-camera responded, I'm following your recipe, Chef Mia. The second clip was from Mia's 3rd grade school project, introducing her family. She held up a hand-drawn family tree that featured only Sarah at the center, surrounded by hearts. This is my mummy, she said proudly to the class. Her name is Sarah Nolan. She's not my tummy mummy, she's my heart mummy. That means she chose me. When the lights returned, the courtroom was silent. The judge looked up, her expression unreadable. Miss Monroe? She asked. Alicia didn't miss a beat. Your Honour, we also submit this sealed folder for review. It contains verified evidence relating to the petitioner's financial and legal history, as well as communications indicating intent that undermines their stated motivations. The judge opened the folder, flipping through the documents. Her eyes paused, then narrowed. Do they even know what you have? She asked Alicia. Sarah caught the quick flicker of panic across Logan's face. No, Your Honour, Alicia replied. The judge read silently for another full minute. Then she looked directly at Logan. Mr. Reed, were you going to disclose your prior arrest for domestic battery? Gasps echoed in the room. Logan sat rigid. Jessica turned towards him, stunned. What? It was dismissed, Logan muttered. But it happened, the judge said, and it involved a prior partner. Furthermore, the sealed records indicate ongoing debt, missed loan payments, and a failed business venture. These financial issues directly contradict your claims under oath. The judge turned to Jessica. Did you know about any of this? Jessica's voice cracked. No, I didn't. And yet, the judge continued it. You've asked this court to remove a child from the only home she has ever known and place her under the guardianship of a man with an unreported violent history and unstable finances. Silence. Sarah's pulse thundered. Then the judge folded her hands. This court finds that it is not in the best interest of the child, Mia Nolan, to be removed from her current guardian. The petition for custody by Jessica Morgan and Logan Reed is hereby denied. Sarah barely heard the rest. Her body slumped with a mixture of shock and overwhelming relief. The judge wasn't finished. Furthermore, Jessica Morgan will be granted supervised visitation rights to be coordinated through family services. These may be reassessed in 1 year, contingent upon behaviour and demonstrated respect for the current custodial arrangement. She looked towards Sarah. Miss Nolan, your dedication and history of care are evident. The court recognises you as the legal guardian and de facto mother of Mia Nolan. The gavel came down. Court is adjourned. A murmur of stunned voices filled the room, but Sarah stayed seated, her hand clutched over her heart, tears finally flowing. Alicia leaned in and whispered, We did it! Jessica sat frozen. Logan stood quickly and walked out without looking back. Sarah didn't care. Mia was safe. The war was over. The hallway outside the courtroom was quiet, muffled compared to the storm of emotions still swirling inside Sarah. The gavel had dropped, the war declared over, but her heart hadn't caught up yet. It was still galloping, still gripping every nerve, as if another blow could fall at any second. Then she saw her. Mia stood at the end of the corridor holding the hand of her art teacher, Miss Rivers, who had volunteered to wait with her during the hearing. Her eyes searched for Sarah's the second the elevator doors opened. "Mummy!" Sarah knelt without thinking. "Baby girl," she whispered, arms outstretched. Mia ran and flung herself into Sarah's embrace. "What did the judge say? Do I still stay with you?" Sarah kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her nose, holding her as tightly as she did. "Yes, baby, you stay with me always." May's small body sagged with relief. "You promised and you kept it. I always will." They held each other for a long time in the quiet corridor, mother and daughter, not by law or blood, but by every beat of the heart. In the weeks that followed, Sarah focused on helping Mia heal. Though the custody battle was over, the scars were fresh. Mia, once so vibrant and carefree, had become unusually quiet at school. She clung tighter to Sarah at drop-off, asked repetitive questions about the next day's schedule, and began waking at night from dreams she couldn't explain. With Alicia's guidance, Sarah enrolled her in therapy with Dr. Bethany Rhodes, a child psychologist who specialized in attachment anxiety. Sessions were gentle, drawing, storytelling puppets. But the truth always found its way to the surface. "I was scared she'd take me," Mia told Dr. Rhodes one day, her crayon coloring slow and heavy. "Even though I told the judge I wanted to stay." "What if they didn't listen?" "Who do you mean by they?" the doctor asked gently. Mia thought for a moment. "Grown-ups who don't know me." Sarah sat in the waiting room during these sessions, torn between grief and guilt. She had fought so hard to protect Mia, but the battle had left bruises, silent ones beneath her daughter's small smile. Still, healing was a process, and each day brought small victories. One evening, Mia curled beside Sarah on the couch with her favorite blanket. "Do you think Jessica's still mad?" Sarah hesitated. "No, I think she's sad and maybe sorry." Mia nodded slowly. "I don't hate her, I just don't want to go live with her." "You won't," Sarah said gently. "You get to decide who your family is, and I'll always be your mummy." Mia smiled then, soft and genuine. "You're my chosen mummy." 2 months after the trial, Jessica showed up at Sarah's doorstep. She looked different again, not polished this time, but raw. No makeup, hoodie, eyes swollen as if from crying. "Can we talk?" she asked. Sarah stood in the doorway, unsure, then finally nodded. They sat in the kitchen, the silence between them heavy, but no longer angry, just tired. "I left Logan," Jessica said quietly. Sarah blinked. "What?" "The day after the ruling, I found out you were right. He wanted the money, not me and not us. He already knew about Daniel Brooks. He was planning the whole thing before we even moved back." Sarah said nothing. There was nothing to say. Jessica wiped at her face. "I let him convince me this was my shot to make things right, that I deserved a second chance as a mother. But the truth is, I wasn't fighting for Mia. I was fighting for my own redemption, and I used her to do it." She looked up, eyes red. "I'm so sorry, Sarah, for everything. You didn't deserve any of it." Sarah swallowed hard. "Mia's in therapy. She's scared to lose me. She has nightmares." Jessica winced. "I deserve that." There was a long pause before Sarah spoke again. "You're her birth other. That doesn't just disappear. But if you want to be in her life, it has to be on her terms and my conditions." Jessica nodded. "I'll take whatever I can get. Supervised visits," Sarah said. "No surprises, no gifts, no Logan, ever." Agreed. They sat in silence again, sipping the lukewarm tea Sarah had made out of habit. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something, a beginning. 6 months after the trial, life found a new rhythm. Slower, gentler, deeply intentional. Sarah received a promotion at the School District Health Services Coordinator, overseeing wellness programs across several campuses. It came with a modest raise, better benefits, and most importantly, flexibility. It meant no more rushing through grocery runs between double shifts. It meant walking Mia to school in the mornings and helping with science fair projects in the evenings. It also meant a fresh start. Sarah used part of her savings to put a down payment on a cozy little house with a backyard. It wasn't flashy, but it had white shutters, a lemon tree, and a tiny garden plot along the back fence. When Mia saw it, she squealed with joy. "Can I grow strawberries?" "You can grow a whole forest if you want," Sarah laughed, sweeping her into a spin. They painted her new bedroom together, mint green with cloud decals on the ceiling, and built raised garden beds one Saturday afternoon with help from Gloria, who brought lemonade and moral support. On the first night in their new home, Mia stood barefoot in the yard, sprinkling seeds and whispering wishes into the dirt. As summer faded, Mia's 11th birthday approached. This time, Sarah went all out, not in extravagance, but in heart. She invited Mia's closest friends, decorated the backyard with strings of fairy lights and handmade paper flowers. They roasted marshmallows in a fire pit and watched a homemade slideshow of Mia's life, her first steps. Missing teeth, Halloween costumes, school plays. The final photo was of the two of them sitting on their tiny old balcony, wrapped in blankets, watching the stars. As the crowd cheered, Mia turned to Sarah with teary eyes and hugged her tight. "Best birthday ever," she whispered. Later that evening, when the guests had gone and the yard was scattered with gift wrap and laughter residue, Mia handed Sarah a small envelope. "It's not fancy," she said, "but I made it just for you." Sarah opened it slowly. Inside was a handmade card drawn with coloured pencils and glitter glue. On the front was a big heart with two stick figures, one tall, one small, holding hands under a rainbow. Inside, in Mia's careful, slightly crooked handwriting, were the words, "To the mom who chose me every day, love makes family." Sarah's breath caught, her eyes filled instantly. She reached for Mia, holding her close, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, sweet girl. This is the most beautiful thing I've ever been given." Mia smiled sleepily. "You're my forever." That night, after tucking Mia into bed, Sarah sat in the garden under the soft string lights they hadn't taken down. The air was cool, fragrant with lemon blossoms and new soil. She pulled the card from her pocket and read it again to the mom who chose me every day. For the first time in a long while, she let herself reflect. She remembered the night Jessica left Mia at her door, how lost she had felt, how terrified. She'd had no manual, no partner, no plan, just instinct, and a fierce blooming love for a child who had come into her life through heartbreak, but who had given her something greater than she'd ever imagined. She remembered the betrayals, the cold voices on the phone, Ethan walking away, her parents standing against her in court. She remembered the trial, the sealed folder, the moment the judge saw the truth, and the relief that followed like a flood after a long drought. But most of all, she remembered the moments in between. The Friday night pillow forts, the backyard treasure hunts, the late-night fevers soothed with songs, the quiet moments of painting nails, braiding hair, building a life brick by brick, hug by hug. This wasn't about legal guardianship or biology or bloodlines. This was love, the deliberate kind, the chosen kind. She looked up at the stars and thought of how far they'd come. Mia was thriving, brighter, stronger, more curious than ever. She was brave and silly, clever and kind, and Sarah had gotten to be there for every second of it. A soft shuffle of feet behind her broke the silence. Mia padded out in her pajamas, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders like a cape. "I couldn't sleep," she whispered. Sarah opened her arms and Mia climbed into her lap. They sat together in the quiet garden, wrapped in each other, the world gentle around them. The sun was just starting to set, casting gold and peach across the sky. Sarah watched the colours melt and shift, warm against the silhouette of their new life. I never planned to be a mother, she said softly. Mia looked up. But you're the best one. Sarah smiled through tears, brushing a curl from her daughter's forehead. But you were the best detour life ever gave.